Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining. I'm Natasha Metcalf, the co-founder and chair of LDUK, and a warm welcome to tonight's session. So I'd now like to introduce our special guest tonight, which is Natalie Hay. Natalie is a children's rights campaigner, educational professional, and patient carer advocate. Her son's experience of chronic illness has played a central role in shaping her work. Natalie's child was ill with Lyme disease for 6 years and was bedbound, at one stage giving her first-hand insight into the realities of caring for a child with a complex, poorly understood condition. She understands the barriers family can face in accessing support, getting a diagnosis and treatment for Lyme disease, and ensuring a child has the right to an education which does not jeopardise their health recovery. Natalie's son is a success story because he has made a full recovery and will be going to university this September. She shares her story in the hope of inspiring and supporting others on their challenging journey. Natalie is the founder of Open Doors Education Limited and has spent many years supporting children and families through her work in education, SEND and disability advocacy. She is best known for leading the Free School Meals Disability Inclusions campaign, which challenged the exclusion of disabled children from support and led to a change in the Department of Education guidance. Her campaigning has been recognised nationally, including by the Sheila McKechnie Foundation and NASN. She's also the author of The Parent Carer, a survival and advocacy handbook for raising children with additional needs, available on Amazon. An empowering handbook for carers that includes chapters on chronically ill children, the realities of the parent-carer role, and practical guidance on accessing support and help. So again, thank you so much, Natalie, and we're so looking forward to tonight's session. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So just a bit about me. I'm a solo parent. I have 2 boys, they're now teenagers. I'm a children's rights campaigner, and I'm also a tutor, a teacher, a specialist dyslexic teacher. So I've worked in schools for in London for over 20 years. So I understand the education system really well. I just want to start by saying that the story that I'm going to tell you about my family is the story of one family, but it could be any family. And I felt very much very sad because I always thought the Lyme disease was something very rare and that it was not going to really happen to my family, especially because we avoided the long grasses and my children didn't really wear shorts in the summer when they were in the parks and things like that. And I thought I was monitoring their exposure to ticks and things like that. I thought I was. So I want to start by talking about what it was like before Lyme disease. So I had 2 children. We used to love going out in nature. My son Matteo is the one that got very ill, and he's there in the middle. He was always in nature. He loved being in the parks. He loved playing football. They loved going pond dipping. We went on holiday. I was working as a teacher, and we lived a really full and happy life. We lived in Teddington, where I still live. We have Richmond Deer Park and Bushy Deer Park near to us. But what I later found out was it's not only deer parks where ticks fester. So after this very happy kind of childhood of bringing up my children, everything changed. And when Lyme Disease UK asked me to do this webinar, they said, could I please say something about how I felt as a parent carer sharing my son's illness with family and friends, and whether I felt supported and how I tackled these issues. And in this webinar today, I'm going to be talking very much about how I tackled the misconceptions and the judgments towards me as a parent carer and my son's illness. And I'm hoping that you're going to feel more supported as a parent carer, that you're going to feel there's more things you can do to look after yourself and look after your child, and also knowing that you're not alone. And in my book, I have a whole chapter devoted to the chronically ill child. I'm just going to read a little bit, the first page of the chapter on the chronically ill child, just to say how I was feeling, when everything changed. One of the hardest parts of caring for a chronically ill child is the unspoken judgment. No one ever said outright that I was doing anything wrong, but I felt it. The looks, the crossed arms, the frowns that lingered just a moment too long. Well-meaning comments came thick and fast. Have you tried fresh air? Have you tried vitamins? Have you tried... Eventually, I stopped talking. At home, my life shrank Days became about carrying food trays, managing pain, and watching energy drain from a once vibrant child. I gained weight through comfort eating. My anxiety and sadness deepened. I remember my son, resigned and surrendering to his illness, saying quietly, "It's okay, Mum, if I never go out again." He didn't know what he was missing, but I did. That moment almost broke me. These are the things that my son was complaining about in the early days, when I was thinking, what the hell is going on? And he spent so much time on the sofa, and this is his younger brother giving him a hug. There are very few photos of the 6 years when my son was ill, because most of the time he just would not let me take photos because he was in such discomfort and didn't feel himself. But he had a lot of pain, had a lot of crying at bedtime, and usually crying about, how am I going to get through the next tomorrow? I feel so tired. I feel so tired. There was a lot of isolation. People would ask if they could come round because they knew he was ill and we didn't know quite what was wrong with him. And to begin with, he would have visitors, but he found it really exhausting, and he was trying to pace his energy levels. So he became more and more isolated. He had difficulties concentrating. So that started at school. I would get phone calls saying, "Can you come and pick him up?" And then at home as well, he stopped drawing. He used to draw all the time. He stopped reading. He stopped playing. He had disturbances with light. He couldn't be in the light too long. He had to stay in the dark. And he had no appetite, which was really scary for me. And he had like food sensitivities. He couldn't eat certain foods, and he had very restless sleep, lots of wakening in the night. Headaches were just the worst thing. And he had flu symptoms on and off, this general malaise, this discomfort, and also anxiety. Although the anxiety for him was more around the fact that he felt so tired, and around like, when was he going to get better and why was he feeling like this? So for me as a parent carer, this was absolutely terrifying and exhausting for me emotionally, because I had to like really try and work out what was wrong with him. And I'll talk a little bit more about the journey of that diagnosis and different stages. But this is why I wrote this book, The Parent Carer, because at the time there just wasn't really much understanding of someone being a carer and a parent. And it took me a long while to realise I was one. I remember going away for a break with my younger son, because my elder one, the son that was ill, did not have the energy at all to travel. And while I was away, I was feeling so sad. Actually, when I was thinking today, when I was remembering how it feels to be a parent of a child that's chronically ill, I remember the word that came to me was sadness. I was just so sad. And my mum always said, when you smile, the whole world smiles with you, and when you cry alone. And it very much felt like I couldn't keep saying about how bad everything was, that people didn't want to hear it. But it was really sad. It was really depressing. And when I was away, I looked up like parent feeling depressed from their child being ill. And then I realised I was a carer. And some people said to me, some well-meaning family members said, "But you're a mother, you're not a carer." And I said, "I'm a caring mother, yes, but I've got all these added responsibilities now." So that's when I came across the term parent carer, which, by the way, is still not in the dictionary, and I think it should be. We have housewife in there, stepson, midwife. We don't have parent carer, we have caregiver. So I'm hoping that's one of the things that will change. And in my book, I have so many things about parent carers' needs assessments, respite, the economical difficulties, the kind of ways you can get grants and how you can get help to support yourself. Because it's extremely important that you look after yourself so that you can nurture your child. So I just said here a few of the main things that I struggled with as a parent carer, which no one prepares you for. The constant fear of what comes next and not knowing how to protect your child, especially when you haven't got much of a diagnosis, which I'll go on to later. Fighting for your child's right to education when the system isn't built for them is extremely draining. And even as someone who worked in education myself, who knew the education law a little bit and knew the policy, it was still very difficult to get that, and I'll talk more about that later. advocating relentlessly against disbelief, bureaucracy and closed doors was also another problem that I had continually. And then there was a hidden financial cost of things like, should I get private treatments or not? Things like travel, because I needed a car to take my son around places. I needed to, be strong actually, because at one point I had to carry him from his bedroom to the bathroom because he was that weak. And then I had to give up work. I cut down my hours, and then I studied, and then I had to leave my studies as well because it was just too much. All the paperwork and the support and paying for respite. I didn't have much family support, it was just too difficult. He started needing me more at night again. I remember thinking it's like he's a baby again. It's like he's gone back from 9 years old back to 18 months old because he needed me to cut his food up again. He needed more cuddles. He needed so much support at night, and just so much more emotional support because he'd been quite a resilient, outgoing, sociable boy before this happened. It's really difficult to be a parent carer, and I was wearing my Fight Lyme Disease t-shirt this May, and I was going to the beach with my boys. Here's something which we never got to do in the 6 years my son was ill. We just stopped going to the beach, stopped doing days out. And I came across this Samaritans sign. It reminded me that I called Samaritans when my son was ill. I called them on Christmas Eve because not many people want to hear you crying on Christmas Eve because you don't know what to do about your son. So it makes me feel emotional remembering it. And when you've got to be the strong one, because I wouldn't cry in front of my son obviously, and had to keep trying to say, don't worry, you just need to rest, we need to get you pacing, and you're going to be better tomorrow, mummy's going to make sure I find out what's wrong, and just supporting him the whole time. And it's really important to know that there's places like the Samaritans that you can ring 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and just tell them everything that's going on with no judgment. So although only one child had Lyme disease, the whole family lived with it, and the younger son became a young carer. And I write about, there's a whole chapter devoted to young carers in my book. And I feel very, very strongly that we mustn't forget that the other family members will be affected by a child with chronic illness in the family. And there's amazing support out there. So my local carer centre, and you can find out where your local carer centre is by going on to carers.uk and typing in your postcode, and they'll tell you your local carer centre. They had a special young carer section. So I ran them up and said, I think my son's a young carer, his brother's really ill. And they were absolutely amazing. They sent someone in to talk to him at school, took him out of his lessons, and all children like missing a lesson, just asking him how he was. And I warned him, I said, you could tell them anything you want. It's like when mummy has therapy, you can tell them if I'm being annoying and all we ever talk about is Matteo, or mum's upset, whatever, you tell them everything. It's confidential, it's about you, it's your time as a young carer. And he found it really helpful. And there was someone else in his class, and he said, I remember him saying, mummy, me and the other girl, we're both carers, and you know what, she's like me, and she's like one of the kinder children, and I think being a carer makes us more kind, and things like that, really sweet little nuggets like that. And then he got to go on these days out as well with other young carers. So because I was feeling awful because we weren't going anywhere ever. For us, a special occasion was Deliveroo and Netflix. That was it, because we tried going out without our son, without Matteo and my son and his brother, and it didn't feel right. So he got taken out to do things like go-karting by young carers and things like that. So it was really helpful. I really suggest letting the school know that your child's a young carer, letting the GP surgery know, and contacting young carer at your local centre and finding out what support is available. So things people said. So one of the hardest things being a parent carer of a child that's got chronic illness and Lyme disease is what people say to you. It can't be that bad. Do you know what? No one has ever actually said those words to me, but what you do is you get a lot of judgment and a lot of oh, well, either pity, I'm so sorry, or it's not that bad. Look on the bright side, he's not in hospital. But when you're at home all the time with someone chronically ill, and it's very monotonous, there's a lot of unknowns, and you don't know how long it's going to go on for, and it is really bad. So and also on the days when he looked well and they said he looked fine, on the days when he did manage it out the door, that was really hard as well, because even I, as his parent, would say to him, oh, you're good today, or you've got some energy, and then he would like correct me and say, no, but I still feel sick, or I've got this weird sore throat, or so I think it's really important that we don't judge, and especially children who can't always communicate exactly what's going on for them. And it's really interesting now that he's 18 and he can tell me, express himself better about what happened, although he's got some massive like things missing in his memory, like things that his younger brother and I can remember that he's blacked out. Like he can't remember crying at night, and he can't remember the level of pain where I had to give him ibuprofen and CBD oil and stuff. He can't remember that. So it's really interesting. What I think parent carers need is, I believe you when we tell them what's going on. Asking, how can I help? Not, what I got a lot was, oh, you're so strong, you're so amazing. And like you're crumbling inside and you're knackered and sleep deprived, and you're like, it's nice, it's flattering, it's sweet, but how can I help is more helpful. And one person asked me if they would like a lift to the hospital, even though they knew I had a car. And that was just like, yes, thank you so much, because then I wouldn't have to try and concentrate on driving at the same time as checking my son was okay. And you may not realize that a 10-minute journey can be very stressful if you've got a child who's having motion sickness, because my son, he had struggled with car journeys and the sensory overload of that when he was struggling with Lyme. So this is the journey I went through. So now I'm just going to quickly talk about the journey, because this is what people always want to know. And when I was in the stage where my son had a diagnosis of chronic fatigue, I felt that he was getting worse. I was desperate to hear other people's stories to try and help me work out what was going on, because basically we were left to rot. My son was left to rot by the NHS when we got the chronic fatigue diagnosis. So it started with pneumonia in 2017 when my son was 9. And he was given a diagnosis of walking pneumonia. When we went to the hospital, there was shading on his lung. And at the time, that then led to doctors later on, a paediatrician at Kingston Hospital, saying that he had post-viral chronic fatigue. But later on I found out that he could have had pneumonia at the same time as when he was infected with Lyme. That could have been coincidental, it could have been connected, or it could have been that his immune system was lower, and so that's why he had that reaction to a nasty virus, which I remember at the time put some children in my area into hospital. And then the first symptoms to appear were brain fog and headaches, and they were also the last symptoms to go. And they were the major ones. And then from then on, from those two symptoms, he had so many. And then they all went back until the last ones were brain fog and headaches. So the reason why I say it's unexplained illness is because even though the doctor said he had post-viral fatigue, my gut instinct as a mother felt there was something else going on. But, as I went through the NHS and just did everything they told me, and they did some tests and ultrasounds and different things because he was feeling sick. And for years of uncertainty, 2.5 years maybe of uncertainty, I think it was, and school attendance becoming basically impossible, lots of misconceptions, things like that, I finally came across the idea that he might have Lyme disease. And if you see in the center of this, there's this is an AV1 robot. So this is like a torso with two eyes. And I put this on here because this is what was used in school when he couldn't come in at one point. That was put on his desk in place of him. And it basically, what happened was, it was done Wi-Fi at home. He would be at home watching his year 6 classroom, and then the little light at the top would flash when he wanted to put his hand up, and then he'd get to speak through here. So it was very novel to begin with. There was a lot of excitement in the classroom. But unfortunately, Wi-Fi and the teacher wasn't that on board with it, and issues happened, and it didn't really work as well as it should have done. But the school tried everything. They tried, and the local authority tried giving a teaching assistant to my son. They tried getting him to spend half his day in the medical room. They were so pushy with attendance that in the end, I had to have a meeting and had to bring the nurse, consultant nurse from UCLH had to come to the meeting, and an advocate from a local charity for disabilities, and me. And we had to say to the school that it's not okay for him to be lying down in a medical room all day. He should be at home. But it was really difficult because of this push for attendance and the misconceptions around chronic fatigue syndrome. Like, maybe he just needs to go to school, maybe just needs to do exercise. And I had to keep reminding everyone, he was really happy before. He was sociable, he was playing on the school football team, and he was a happy child, but still they had that judgment and everything. And at the same time, he started to deteriorate. So he became housebound first, then bedbound, lots of stomach illness issues in terms of just not being able to tolerate eating much. He was we did an allergy test and he was allergic to kiwis, avocados. He doesn't have any of this anymore. We took gluten out. When he recovered from Lyme disease, all of that left. Extreme fatigue. So I researched and I found Facebook groups online that were amazing support to me, particularly parent carers, parents of children with ME/CFS. And there were a few people on there that would sometimes say every now and then, the chronic fatigue could be caused by Lyme disease. And that kind of sowed the, seed, I wonder. But I thought, I never saw a tick bite. So I kind of ruled it out. So, and then I came across this amazing Canadian professor's lecture when I was wondering about it. And it was a lecture he did for his students, medical students, and it was about the testing system in Europe and how it was a flawed two-tiered system, because in order to get a blood test to see if there was the Borrelia burgdorferi bacterium in the blood, you had to first of all have an antibody test to see if you developed antibodies. And if you hadn't developed antibodies, you would never get the second test. And my son had that antibody test, and because it had come back negative, he wasn't given any further tests. And meanwhile, there was a particular parent online who now has her own Facebook group called Mums and Dads of Kids with Lyme, and she lives in New Jersey. She's now a friend. I remember her putting on a picture on the group of her son getting better, and he was hoovering. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, he's hoovering. Like, my son, there's no way he could hoover. I mean, he can't even cut up his food. He has to sit on a special seat. We got occupational therapy came around and gave us these special seats to go on the bath so that he could sit down when he was having a quick shower. And I just thought, and I remembered this child of hers, her son Michael, and she said that she'd given me permission to talk about their story. And she said that, I remember he had very similar symptoms to Matteo, really similar. And then I messaged her and said, what happened? And she said it was Lyme disease. Natalie, you have to look into this. And I said, did you see a tick? And no, we never saw a tick, we never saw a bite. And that's when I learned that 1 in 3, I don't know if that's the right statistic anymore, but 1 in 3 people never saw a tick bite. So that's when I found out about ILADS, and I then started looking at diagnosis. I attended a Lyme conference in London, which I know this charity, Lyme Disease UK, were at. I'm not sure if I saw some of you there, but and I was volunteering for another Lyme charity at the time, doing some awareness volunteering for them. And I learned about the private doctors working in the field who were trying to help people that were wondering whether they had a diagnosis or not. And then I basically went up to a clinic in London and persuaded them to let my son have a blood draw and then send his blood test abroad. And he wasn't well enough at the time to go up to London. Right now he's in Portugal, and he's going to Cornwall in September, but at the time he couldn't even travel on the 35-minute train journey to London. So he went to a local GP to get the blood draw done, and then it was couriered off to Germany to a lab there, and it came back, and this was like in 2019, came back positive for Borrelia burgdorferi bacterium in his blood, which could only get that from a tick, and low killer white blood cells. So after that, we went to the GP, and the GP said, well, we can't take this seriously because it's not an NHS diagnosis. And I said, oh, okay, it's from a country, and it was from Germany, and that's, I said, but they're quite good at their medicine there, and I didn't know what to do. And my father said, why don't you tell them, just supposing it was right, what would you do? And so I said that to them, and they said that they would give a course of antibiotics. So he had a course of antibiotics, and his energy went up. He got better, started getting better. And when they stopped, they gave him another course, and then they said, we can't give any more. So he plateaued. So he wasn't really bedbound anymore. He's still housebound. And it took me a long time to find a doctor that I felt that I could go to privately. I was on benefits at the time. We had disability living allowance. I had carers allowance. I was on universal credit, free school meals. It wasn't a time when I wanted to be spending money on private treatments, but I managed to find one that, I thought, let me just pay for the first £250, the first consultation, and thank goodness I did it. I had to fly abroad for that to Ireland, and my son did not want to go. He cried his eyes out about going, and I just said, Matthew, I know it's really hard for you and painful and upsetting, but this could help you, this could cure you, it's worth a try. And yes, that he did recover after 18 months of treatment, private treatment, and 18 months of physio with the NHS, and he's now fully recovered. So I just wanted to include this about symptoms because, sometimes I think people don't realise, they think, famous people like Matt, I've forgotten his surname now, the rugby player, is it Matt Dawson, the rugby player, he had Lyme carditis. People think Lyme disease, acute Lyme disease, but chronic Lyme or long Lyme isn't really understood or accepted always, and there's some controversy around that label in this country. But I think it's really important to look at early Lyme and late Lyme and all the different things. And when I look at these lists, my son had heart palpitations, and the paediatrician was worried about and he had to have the tests, but they didn't say it was Lyme. He was upset, so they didn't say it was Lyme. So they would just judge me more. He had trouble learning, but they just said that he needed to go to school. They didn't think it was Lyme, sleep. He had all these things, but it wasn't picked up. And you do have to be an advocate for your child and maybe think about, sharing the nice guidelines for Lyme disease with your GP, with your paediatrician, and considering it, because it may not be picked up. And I know that charities like Lyme Disease UK are really trying to work on that and help GPs become more knowledgeable and stuff. But and also the sweats as well aren't always talked about. So it wasn't until after diagnosis that I realised, oh wow, that was a Lyme thing, that he kept getting these reoccurring fevers, like low-grade fevers and sweating every now and then, and chills. He'd have weird rashes a lot. And on his feet, really strange. He didn't get much joint pain, my son, but someone else I know, her son, who's also treated by the same doctor, is also fully recovered. He was on crutches, and joint pain was his major thing. So it's different for every child in person, as you're probably aware. It's interesting that fatigue comes up as the highest ranking on this with Lyme disease org, because I think that's why it often gets mistaken for chronic fatigue, Lyme disease. So this is when we were travelling off to get the treatment to Ireland. So I remember saying to my son, it's okay, we'll go in a wheelchair, so you don't have to worry about walking and stuff like that. He wanted to do it there and back in a day. That was what he decided, which is that's what he wanted. So I let him do that because it gave him some sort of control, because he felt very out of control a lot of the time. But the problem is, when your child is being controlling, then the education system will then start questioning that you're not parenting properly, or that you're not, that you're maybe giving in to them too much. And I think it's really important to make sure you're thinking about their long-term health, but also give them little bits of control over their life which aren't going to make a difference, which are going to be positive and help them get through it all. Also in the treatment, I put a picture of herbal, because he had herbal as well. He had natural herbal antibiotics for 18 months alongside his physio, which were really helpful to him too. And one of my neighbours, unfortunately, since finding out about Lyme disease, I found out there was like one other person in my street who had Lyme. She didn't do well with antibiotics, and so she went and did nutrition instead. And there are different ways you can recover. It's not just one way, it seems. But antibiotics were good for my son. And I started really trying to help with the whole Lyme thing. I did some webinars online showing about ticks and to letting people know. And basically we started protecting ourselves even better in the parks. We started spraying insect repellent over our legs and feet. I never go to the park now without spraying insect repellent on my trainers, my ankles and my legs. And then if we went camping or something, we'll do the tick check every day and look in, like, you know, in the groins, in the ear, behind the ears, in the hair. And I think with children, one of the things I learned, which is really interesting, is because they're closer to the ground, it takes less time for the tick to run up and hide in their hair. And my younger child, I actually did find a tick in their hair once. When I was cuddling him to sleep, I felt like what I thought was a boil. And I said, there's a funny bump. And then he said to me, no, that's my bump. That's my bump. And I said, what do you mean my bump? And he basically felt it for the past week and not said anything. He was about 4 at the time. This is before the older one got ill. Could have been the same tick, I don't know, that then went on to Matteo. But at the time, we went and got that removed, and I was a bit scared, so I took him to A&E and got it removed. But I now know how to use a tick twister and things like that. But they do hide. Don't think you'll find it, and don't think you'll always find a big rash. If you find a rash, great, because you know it's infected and you know it's spreading, and you can get the help and you'll have no problem getting the help from the GP. But you know, if it's in the hair, you won't see the bullseye rash if you've got thick hair, for example. So I wanted to talk about the education journey, because parent carers that are watching this, you know, that's missing from some talks about Lyme disease. And then I wanted to bring up again the NICE guidelines. I referred to those for both chronic fatigue and Lyme disease when I was wanting people to understand my son's illness. And I had to go to court, unfortunately, 4 times when my son was ill. So DWP, to get disability living allowance. Funnily enough, when the DWP were looking at the paperwork, they're a bit like, chronic fatigue, I mean, and kind of no. So I had to go to court. When I was in court with the judges, they were very interested in my new finding, the Lyme disease diagnosis, or the blood tests from Germany. And they didn't actually, you know, dismiss it and discredit it the way the GP did, funnily enough. And they were very interested, and they said, and then the disability officer, that was the doctor judge, and the disability officer judge was also very helpful and kind to me. They did interrogate me. They didn't ask me my name. I did feel like I was on trial, but I learned a lot about filling out the disability living allowance through doing that. And the kind of things that they want to know are what the symptoms are of your child. So if you don't know exactly what the diagnosis is, and if you've got no diagnosis, if you can tell them, like, what the things they were asking me were, what percentage of the time is your son in bed? And then I was like, what, in the day, 85%? And they were like, oh, and they wrote it down. I hadn't thought to write that on my form, you know. People always say, like, give the worst day, and you do that, and it's very emotional filling out those forms as a parent, writing the worst day. It's horrible, and you don't want to write it. You're trying to be optimistic, and you're trying to get him better, but it's more than that. You have to be very specific and objective about the reality, and things like percentages are very helpful. And I really recommend getting a charity or a friend or someone to help you fill it out, because you will cry when you're doing it. And also, if you get turned down, then just keep going, because the first time I got turned down, I just chucked the disability living allowance refusal in the bin. And then after that, when I'd come round a few months later, it was too late to appeal. You have 6 weeks to appeal, and then you can't reapply for 6 months. So get the right support around you and don't give up and be level-headed about it. And just, I tried to refer myself to social services because I felt I was struggling so much trying to get my son's education in place, diagnosis, treatment. And the family support worker said to me, "Oh, I can't give you any help because you're a good parent and we're not worried about you. But what I would say to you is just put on your professional hat, pretend it's not your child, stop crying in the meetings, be really organised and just fight for your child." And that was actually really good advice. So I then had to fight for his education. The secondary school also believed that he could come in, or they could give him a reduced timetable, or they could do online learning. And none of these things were working. And as an educator myself, I knew that he wasn't going to get the qualifications if he carried on down that route. So this is why I say, if you want to get an EHCP for your child, if you want them to have EOTUS, which stands for Education Other Than at School, funded by the local authorities, it's different from home education, then you need to familiarise yourself with the NICE guidelines. You need to form evidence from doctors and professionals and occupational therapists or physios, whoever's helping your child. And you can get special educational needs support put in place for a child with chronic illness, because educational healthcare, it's meant to also help people with the physical. It's not just neurodivergent, it's any kind of mental, physical, social, emotional, anything, that conditions which can impact a child's ability to attend school and learn in a normal way. So just to end this, Matteo is going to university this September on his education journey, which makes me so happy. He only has 5 GCSEs, okay? And I am so happy that he did that. I'm so proud of him. He missed school from year 6 to year 11. You can't go back into school in year 11. So he did GCSEs from home. And I helped him as well. I'm a tutor, so I did English language GCSE with him. And then he went into sixth form college and did 3 more GCSEs, or 2 more. I can't remember how it's done now exactly. And then he got a portfolio together and applied. Now he's doing a BA honours in natural history, marine biology and wildlife photography. So this university, Falmouth University, were accepting of his life history and what he'd been through. And he did have to do an extra statement, which he was not happy about, having to do another personal statement to show what he's been through and his self-directed study, because he did a lot of independent study, which I'll move on to later. But he got there and he's there in line with his peers. And I never thought I would be saying that. Like, I was resigned to him being bedbound. Oh no, not bedbound, but housebound. I really didn't know if he'd ever, fully recover. And neurologically as well, I know the dangers and the nerve issues and the problems. So I can't believe that I'm speaking and that he's a success story. But yeah, I just want to give hope to other people that it can happen. Lyme Disease UK asked for Matteo's words. So these are things that he texted me today from Portugal. Lyme disease can leave a child alone and isolated. The child will need to be given more conscious support and effort to help keep their social life intact. Family and some friends are really important for this. It's funny he says that, because I remember him complaining every time I suggested bringing a friend round, and it was hard, but I had to be really selective. It had to be the right people that understood him and that knew him really well and didn't push him too much. And then I'm not surprised he said this: if a child is not feeling well, they might not budge very easily, and this isn't laziness or not wanting to be active. It could be their body trying to stop them so that they don't crash or lose progress. Oh, he's written loose. I'll have to speak to him about that spelling. The thing is, sometimes being pushed is important. My body was resisting wanting to travel for antibiotics, yet that was an important step for my recovery. Same goes for the physio. I remember the first time that I tried to get him to do physio, and I managed to convince the local physiotherapist to do 5 minutes online. And when they did, and then build it up from there, and then 10 minutes, 20 minutes. So it was online from his bedroom, and then they went to the garden, and then it went out to hydrotherapy, outside of the local hydrotherapy pool. But I remember the first time I said to do it, and he was in pain afterwards. And I remember saying to him, like, remember in the movies, Matthew, when people have crashes and then they can't walk and they're in crutches? That's like you. And they say, and the nurse says, come on, you can do it. Your muscles aren't working properly anymore because of what you've been through. So there's a lot of emotional support required in being a parent carer for a child with Lyme, and trying to give them analogies and trying to get them to think objectively, but also being disciplined with them and saying, no, you have to do this sometimes, is important. Hated taking his medicine, absolutely hated it, and would try not to take it and stuff. Then I'd say, but is it making you feel better? I said, you don't have to take it if it's not making you feel better. And they'd be like, no, it is making me feel better. And I couldn't believe it because I was so worried because he's barely eating, and I thought, oh no, antibiotics. But he started eating more. But now, this is last month in Brighton, my 2 strong, healthy boys. And Matthew says, I think the thing to remember is that with slow progress, the thought of reversing that is scary, and it can sometimes stop children with Lyme from taking important steps. I think that's really interesting, because when he made progress, he didn't want, and he'd learned about pacing, and he was getting better at managing his energy, and he became quite reluctant and scared. But it's interesting that he's admitting that now, that it's important to do physio, and, what he said here, you can push through the hardship with the right support around you. I think as a parent, when it's the right support. I knew that pushing him to go to school wasn't the right thing at certain stages in year 6, 7, 8, 9. It was only when he got to year 11. And, he was a little bit I don't know do I need to go to school now? And I was like, just because I'm fine here. I was like, you're going. And then I knew when he went, he'd have loads of fun and make friends. And he came back so happy and self-esteem boosted and everything. So yeah, it's about timing, isn't it? I don't think I'll read all of that now, but I know what I'll say is, I know what it's about. It's about making sure you have really important, really good hobbies. So this is something he said before. We did a podcast together once about Lyme disease, and he said having hobbies and interests is so important. And one of them was Fortnite, and I got a lot of stick for that, letting him do that. And I got a lot of judgment from family members, or maybe that's why he's not able to study. But for him, it was a substitution for football. He played so much Fortnite that he won a tournament. He won money for it when they were doing tournaments. He now never does computer games. He got a PlayStation, he never does it. He spends most of the time in the park taking photos, playing badminton, playing, going swimming, things like that. So it hasn't affected him negatively. It was sociable for him, and the players he played with couldn't see him. And it's his way of being connected. And it's interesting that he's mentioned about being connected to the internet, because he was a bit concerned with the new social media ban, because he said, I asked him what he thought about it. I didn't give any judgment. I just said, what do you think? And he said, what about YouTube? Because I used to watch so many nature documentaries on YouTube, and I learned so much. And that's how I learned how to be a photographer, and I learned how to use my SLR. So I think it's really important that we, that we kind of listen to the children and see what they really want to do, because it's really a sad time for them, and we need to find out what they want to do to get through that time, what they're interested in. So that's kind of really important. And I didn't know at the time, we used to watch so many nature documentaries, and I did not know that he'd end up studying natural history later. So that's something really positive and amazing that's come out of it all. So in the park now near us, there's a massive sign about Lyme disease. His father did write to the park about it. I don't know if that's why, or something out, or another reason, or maybe because of all the leaflets which I've been posting from this charity every year, in everywhere I can. I don't know, including in the park benches and stuff. Yeah, lots of positive things can come out of this kind of journey, locally, nationally, I think that's really important to remember. For me, that I've written a book, and my son won a young photographer competition for taking photo of a bird in the park. People always surprised, they say, did he want to go back to the park after everything that happened to him in the park? But he never blamed the ticks, or they didn't know they had borrelia. And so Yeah, and I ended up becoming a campaigner for children with disabilities that weren't getting free school meals because I was in that situation, socioeconomic difficulties, and that's why I've written a whole chapter on socioeconomic difficulties and the load of being a parent carer. And so yeah, good things can come out of bad experiences like this. He missed his prom. There were so many things he missed, and they upset me so much. Like, you know, all the football matches and all the, you know, productions and graduations and everything, proms. So that year that he was meant to have a prom, he came with me to the charity awards because a charity that was supporting my campaign, Contact Charity, were nominated for an award and they won. And so he was able to come and, you know, still do an alternative. And I think it's really important to think, what kind of alternatives can I offer? So we used to do things like special days as well, where we'd get things through the post, like surprises. So they could no longer be special days out, but they could be special days in, you know. And there's lovely charities like Smile for ME who send like special gift boxes as well when you're suffering, when child's suffering at home. And it's about thinking outside the box and thinking, what can we do now? You know, we can't get those years back, but, you know, what can we do instead? This is my book. If you'd like to buy it, there's the QR code. I just wanted to just reiterate again, really, that it's really important to rest, both the child and the parents. The advocacy and community are really important, and that you can make progress, and that you will need to rest after everything too. Like, it was a long journey, and my son's herbalist said, when I was saying it's just taking so long, but he is getting better. And she said, like, slow and steady wins the race. And it was almost like we couldn't remember, like people say, like, instead of don't compare, you know, your child to last week, compare them to 6 months ago. Have they made progress? And that's what's really important to consider. He started to love badminton. Badminton's high cardio. When I play with him, my goodness, I'm so shocked that he's been able to do that after having this illness. And we went to watch our first match live at Rugby Stadium, even though we are like 20-minute drive from Rugby Stadium. We didn't manage to get there until last year because he was ill at 9 years old. He had his first job finally at 18 as a waiter. He's back to playing sport. He's able to go on holidays now. You know, I never thought that he would get better or that he would go completely back to how he was, but he has. So it is possible. My company, Open Doors Education, supports people who are struggling with getting education support for their child. And even though I originally was going to be an educational psychologist, I abandoned that after not being able to do the studying for it and then seeing how broken the education system is. And so I work outside the system now, and I prefer to work with charities and people that want to really try and change things. Because if you're watching this and you're struggling right now because you can't get the right support from the NHS or from the school system, I totally understand. And that is probably one of the hardest things alongside seeing your child in pain.
What would you say for parents who just feel like they've got no hope, they're having the worst day? What would your message be? Just to close.
Don't give up hope, definitely. And just make sure that you're nurturing yourself and your child. Don't get too focused on people's judgment around you. And make time for yourself as a parent carer as well, because it's a marathon. And if you're in the early stages of wondering if your child's got Lyme, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And with your child, let them find their hobbies and the things they want to do, and make some allowances. Like maybe they'll have a bit more screen time, and you know, that's okay. You know, you have to make compromises because it's hard, it is tough, and you need to find people that will let you talk about that, how hard it is.
Thank you so much, and I can just commend how strong you are. It's really, really inspiring, and Matthew is a lucky guy to have you as his mum in his corner. Incredible to hear your journey. So thank you so much for taking the time to share and so candidly. And also thank you to Matthew too. It's really brave of him to allow photos to be shared and also his words. So thank you so much.
Actually, I've got a poem I could read from here about being a parent carer.
Thank you. And we'd love to hear your poem. I think that'd be a really lovely way to close.
So I read this at the charity awards as well. So I just came to me to write it one day. Fight for the children, fight for the frail, fight for the carer who cannot tell their tale. Equity is the answer, not ignoring the law. Let's make real adjustments. Let's open that door. Actions and remedies, empathy and support. Not pity, not apathy. There's no time to retort. We need change, we need love. We need understanding from the leaders above. We don't need glory, we don't need shame. Keep your unfair allegations, swallow your cruel, spiteful blame. We didn't choose this, we don't want to be victims, but we are stuck like mud in these unjust, broken systems. Help us help our children do what is right. Offer help to a parent with no energy left to fight. Remember, because of each closed and locked door, carers cry, disillusioned, broken on the floor.
Amazing to share that. Thank you. I think that's such a fitting way to close. And thank you, everybody, for making time. It's really important.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.